Hey, everybody, welcome in. It is a Wednesday post-practice edition of the Utopia Football Podcast. I'm Stefon Pendergast, one half of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610. It's great to be with you. I appreciate all of you continuing to tune in, download, share, tell a friend about the podcast. And we are just moments removed from the Texans practicing in another scorcher in the middle of the day here. All three practices this week are midday practices. If you're wondering about the timing of the podcast coming out and whatnot, all three practices starting anywhere from 10:45 to 11:30. D'Amico Ryans actually talked about that yesterday, and he's doing it, I think, for a couple of reasons. One is just to see how his players react to the extreme heat of the middle of the day. A little adversity to drop in there. D'Amico is a guy who's while he is a very friendly person, a Southern gentleman, and a player's coach, he is not somebody who's going to let his players just get by in training camp with soft, easy practices. They're putting in the full workout there in these midday practices. They've not cut anything short yet in these sessions. There's going to be one more tomorrow before the Giants come to town for a Saturday noon game. And that's the other thing I think people should keep in mind is that the other reason they're doing the practices in the middle of the day is that D'Amico is, I believe, to the best he can in August, trying to simulate what a game week is going to be like. So normally this game would be on a Sunday, likely at noon. So during a normal game week in the season, they practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're off Saturday, and then they play on Sunday. Normally during the season, they practice in the middle of the day. So to simulate a game week, this time the game is on a Saturday. He's going Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, off Friday, game on Saturday. So there's a dual purpose involved. One of it involves machismo. The other one involves kind of, muscle memory repetition of feeling what a game week is like. So that's why he's doing it. I have no idea if people listening to the podcast care about that part of it. I'm guessing most of you are like, Sean, just get to the good stuff. Who was there? Who wasn't? Who practiced? Who didn't? Who made plays? Who didn't make plays? Who's making this GD team of ours that we hope makes it to a Super Bowl this year? And I get it. I'm going to get to all those things in the next 10 or 12 minutes. This will be a quick one today. There will be another one tomorrow, and then I'll have a preview of the Giants coming to town on Friday for Saturday's game. So let's start with the injury report, the injury update. Here are the following players that, as best I can tell, did not practice today. Now, keep in mind, most of them are out there working out on the field next to where the Texans practice. There's 3 fields out there, or 4 maybe, 3 fields. And most of the guys are working out on one of the empty fields. The injured guys are working out on the empty fields off to the side. But it's the same suspects that we've had recently here. Jeff Okudah, Noah Brown, Tegan Catoriano, Charlie Heck has a foot issue. Christian Harris, I did not see him out there. All these other guys were out at practice today, just working out off to the side. Christian Harris I did not see. Doesn't mean he wasn't out there. It just means I didn't see him. All these other guys I saw, Ben Skoranek, Will Anderson, Danico Autry, and Tim Settle. And if guys are working out kind of hard on that side field, and I'm telling you this just so you know kind of what the severity of these injuries are, if they're working out on the side field, then if this were a regular season game, then these would probably be guys who would be listed as questionable for for whatever game was being played that Sunday. So none of these injuries appear to be super serious. Even Christian Harris was actually on the practice field on Sunday and then left with what looked like a re-aggravated injury of some sort. So again, I said this yesterday, and it holds up again today, barring any reports that we get out of the team today or out of people covering the team. The team has stayed fairly healthy here through training camp, unlike last season where they had all sorts of issues, and so many that they had to cancel the joint practice with the Saints in the final week of training camp. The sense I get from talking to people today is that Rams practice, the joint practice, which will be a week from tomorrow, is still a full go. So unless something crazy happens in terms of attrition over the next few days, knock on whatever this marble or whatever my counter is made out of here at the Hanover, then they're on for practice with the Rams next week. So that's the injury report. Again, a lot of the guys who returned this week were out there and playing well today. Laramie Tunsil, Joe Mixon, very involved in the offense today. We'll get to all that in just a second. As far as the theme of the day, If you're watching on the stream, you can see just to my right here, just to the left of my head. You got the bullet points right there. Diggs Day, rookie updates, practice notes. That's what we're going to get to in the next few minutes here. Today, Stefon Diggs, you guys have heard me say this on this podcast since the beginning of training camp, and I've said it any appearance that I've done on the radio in other markets, any writing that I've done on the Houston Press, which, by the way, you can get my practice summaries on HoustonPress.com as well if you'd like to read them, in addition to listening to them or watching them, not as a replacement, in addition to, okay? Need you to consume all my content. But anybody who's been listening to me, or really anybody out of camp, Stefon Diggs, in my opinion, has been the Texans' best offensive player out of camp. And today might have been his best day so far, which is saying something because he has stacked several great days in a row. He was incredible today. He and CJ Stroud, the connection they had today was remarkable. It was really good in one-on-one drills. The Texans did before doing team. There are 4 sessions of 11-on-11 that they do. They do 4 10-minute sessions of 11-on-11 all at the end of practice. Prior to that, they're doing all sorts of individual drills and group drills. And some days they do one-on-one drills, wide receivers against defensive backs, O-line against D-line, all kind of, stationed in different parts of the practice facility there. Media always watches the wide receivers and the DBs because it's the most entertaining part. Stefon Diggs was amazing. He beat Kamari Lassiter on a slant. He beat him on an out route in the end zone. All the one-on-ones they did were down in the deep red zone today. So that was really fun to see guys, getting to get physical, use their bodies, things like that to try to wall off defenders and get balls. That was a lot of fun to see. Diggs cooked in that drill. And then came the 11-on-11, and Stefon Diggs was a murderer. He was killing everybody. Didn't matter if it was a crossing route. Didn't matter if it was a slant route. The highlight of the whole thing in team session 3, I think it was, CJ Stroud threw what was, depending on which media member you follow, anywhere from a 60 to 70 yard. I went with 70. I like to talk about the air yards. I don't care about the line of scrimmage. The kids these days like the air yards. So I'll call it a 70 yard. It was a bomb, a dime, dropped in the bucket, downfield, CJ Stroud, Diggs with everybody behind him. He beat the whole defense downfield, and it was a touchdown, and it was a thing of beauty, and that will not be the last time that happens between those two. This is going to be a whole lot of fun to watch. That's all I can tell you is if they get any semblance of a running game, this is going to be an incredible offense to watch operate this year. And I think Stefon Diggs, if training camp is any indication, Stefon Diggs is going to have a monster year this year. And the best thing that can happen with Stefon Diggs is that he pushes the Texans to really, really, really have to make some tough decisions about whether or not you pay him and bring him back next year. He's only on a 1-year deal right now. So, and maybe that's part of why he's looking so good and acting the way he's acting, which has been nothing but exemplary. I think he's going to be one of the captains of this team. But I think if training camp is any indication as to what Stefon Diggs and CJ Stroud are going to do together, it's going to be beautiful. The only thing that would stop me from saying that Diggs could have the biggest season in the history of the team for a wide receiver is 2 things. One, Andre Johnson had some monster seasons for this team, like monster seasons in 2008 and 2009, leading the league in catches and yards in 2008, leading the league in yards in 2009. I don't think Diggs is going to lead the league in yards. And in part goes to my second part of that take, which is there's a lot of mouths to feed. And there's going to be games where Tank Dell's the leading receiver. There's going to be games where Nico Collins is the leading receiver. There's going to be games where they get up by a bunch and just run the ball in the second half. I think there's going to be games where CJ Stroud only throws for 225 or 230 yards and they win by 3 or 4 touchdowns because that's what they want to do. And they've equipped themselves more to do that now with a healthy offensive line and with Joe Mixon. But you see that first bullet point, if you're watching on YouTube, that first bullet point, Diggs Day, in a training camp where he has stacked some massive monster days. Today, to me, was the biggest one. Those two were just in sync today. Second bullet point, the rookie update. And the reason I decided to focus on the rookies for a bullet point is that, one, they're all out there. The ones that matter are all out there. And there's not a single one that isn't climbing the depth charts right now from rounds 2 through 4. They had no first round pick this year. All of the rookies they have in rounds 2, 3, and 4 are all climbing the depth chart, other than Blake Fisher, who the only reason he's not climbing the depth chart is because A, he started out first string because of injuries, and B, we all knew that he wasn't going to start for this team if Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard are healthy. Those are the two highly paid tackles that you have. So I don't even count Blake Fisher going back to second string as some sort of demotion. Obviously, we know the deal. He was substituting for Laramie Tunsil. So rather than me categorizing all of them as ascending, I'm going to categorize all of them as exceeding expectations so far. I think if you had told people before training camp that Kamari Lassiter is going to be the starting cornerback opposite Derek Stingley Jr., I think they would have bet against that. I think most people thought at best Kamari Lassiter was going to be a slot corner this year, and there was going to be a lot of baptism going on with him. He looks the part of a starting cornerback in the NFL. That's number one. Blake Fisher's gotten a lot of reps against some really good defensive ends throughout training camp. He's going to be the swing tackle for this team. So that is number two. Kalen Bullock, who is the reason why I made this bullet point. Kalen Bullock was running with the first dime defense unit today. So he's not a starting safety, but we don't expect him to be. They've got Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward out there. They've got some other veterans in camp, too, at that safety position, but Kalen Bullock shows up every day and does something. And so he was out there with the ones in the dime unit and the dime package today, and Kalen Bullock is going to get on the field for this team. And then there's Cade Stover, who I think John Lopez asked me this when I did my guest spot on In the Loop about 30 minutes ago. He said, is the tight end position starting to take shape? Do we have our two tight ends for two tight end sets? And I think we do. Dalton Schultz is obviously going to be one of them. He's a starter and he's paid like it, and he was really good last year. I see Brevin Jordan as more of just sort of a hybrid gimmick, more of an offensive weapon, whereas Cade Stover can certainly catch the football, and he's a really good athlete. But Cade Stover is probably the best blocker out of all these guys. That's going to get him on the field in Bobby Slowick's offense. So those four rookies, and I'll even throw Jawar Jordan in there. Jawar Jordan, we'll get to this in the notes in a second, had a catch and run today. And they didn't stop him until he got to the 5-yard line. Down in a goal to go, he caught it. You know, they were running offense around midfield. He caught a slant route, and he took it almost to the house. I don't know if Jawar Jordan's going to make the team, but my point is, even these day three guys, you know, Marcus Harris, the 7th-round pick out of Auburn, the defensive lineman, he's shown some things. I think if these guys don't make the 53, I think they are rooting hard for all these guys to get through waivers and bring them back on the practice squad. So for a team that didn't have a first-round pick, Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans did a really, really good job stacking this rookie class. And it looks, I would say at least 4 of them are going to be really important pieces to the team this year. The first 4 guys they drafted, Kamari Lassiter, Blake Fisher, Kalen Bullock, and Cade Stover, all look to be very solid NFL players. As far as other notes around practice, we'll get to our final bullet point. I mentioned, I can't go without repeating, Stefon Diggs was outstanding today. Catching everything in sight, catching everything at all levels of the defense. He was just really, really good. John Mechie had a good day today. John Mechie made a couple of plays today on some crossers, on a deep ball from Tim Boyle. So that was good to see. Again, is it enough to get Mechie back to where you feel like the odds are better that he makes the team than doesn't make the team? I don't know. I don't think so. But John Mechie had a good day today. Joe Mixon just looks different out there than the other running backs, and it was good to see him getting involved. He ran the ball quite a bit. They got him involved in the passing game quite a bit, split him out wide, ran some kind of what my old co-host Ted Johnson used to call H-angle plays, where he, out of the backfield, he's kind of offset in the backfield. He runs 45-degree angle, say, to his right, and then angles back to the left at a 45-degree angle and kind of gets in that soft spot of the defense. The Texans appear to like to use Joe Mixon in that capacity. He dropped a pass on that pattern, but they used him there, and he did have some catches in the passing game. Let's see. Who else? I mentioned Jawar Jordan's catch and run. Miles Bryant, who is fighting for a roster spot. He's number 30 if you're watching the game on Saturday, if you've watched any of the games so far. He had a really good interception off of Case Keenum, like a really athletic play. I don't know if he makes a team or not, but it was definitely a sudden change play. Henry To'oTo'o had a pass breakup on a play. I forget who it was intended for, But I bring that up because Toa, if Christian Harris remains injured, Toa is going to play a decent number, if not a lot of snaps for this team. Week 1, if Christian Harris stays hurt, it's going to be Henry Toa and Azeez Al-Shire out there running around at linebacker in the nickel, which is they run more nickel than anything else. So get used to Henry Toa. He was treated with kid gloves in that first game of the year, first game of the preseason against the Chicago Bears. He was one of the chosen that did not play in that game because they protected him from injury. So that's how they view him right now. I view him as a lock to make the team at this point. Henry Toa had a nice PBU today. So, other than that, it was a lot of the same that we've seen. Derek Stingley Jr. has probably been to the defense what Stefon Diggs has been to the offense. He's been maybe their best player out there. I think there's been more candidates on the defensive side of the ball for best player in camp on that side of the ball than on offense, where Diggs has just been, to me, so far and away the best player that they've had out there. Stingley, Al-Shire has been very good out there. Danielle Hunter has been very disruptive out there as well. Mario Edwards has been excellent defensively so far throughout camp. We've only got 5 practices left. That's it. This is practice number 16. So there you go. There's your update for today. I hope that helped. And I'll be back at it tomorrow. The Texans practice tomorrow at 11:15. So expect this update to get dropped into your podcast inbox, however it is you get your podcasts or your push notifications sometime tomorrow afternoon. A reminder, again, hit that subscribe button. You don't have to worry about anything. You'll get it dropped right there as soon as we send it out to you. So subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Most importantly, tell a friend. Keep listening. I appreciate that. And all roads lead back to NRG Stadium on Saturday. First time back in the stadium since the Texans beat the Browns in the playoffs last year. Should be a whole lot of fun. A reminder, too, Seth and I will be doing the pregame show. Seth Payne and I will be doing the pregame show just outside the stadium. So if you're a listener to the podcast, please come by. And I may need to come up with some sort of hand signal for you guys or something to tell me that you're a loyal listener to the podcast. Or you can just tell me. I like that too. So appreciate you guys. And I will see you all tomorrow. Big thanks to Anthony Irwin, my producer, for getting the podcast out to you. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. This has been the Utopia Football Podcast.